At 5:12 local time, the first sign isn't a noise. It's a break in rhythm. Inside the Combat Information Center of the Outer Screen Destroyer, an acoustic operator suddenly stops writing and leans closer to his console. Around him, the carrier strike group moves through the cold Atlantic with practiced precision and almost complete silence. Above the surface, everything appears normal. The carrier stays on course. The escorts keep their spacing. Air search radar turns with steady, familiar timing. Nothing topside hints that anything is wrong. Then the operator lifts one side of his headset and speaks. Con, sonar, possible submerged contact. For a moment, no one responds. Not because the words were missed, but because everyone heard them perfectly. The destroyer's tactical action officer steps in behind the console. On the display, the trace is faint, almost too clean to trust. A low-frequency signal, heavy machinery hidden beneath layers of ocean noise. Not a merchant propeller, not marine life, not the usual clutter sonar teams learn to tune out. This is something structured, something controlled, something moving with purpose. Range uncertain, bearing 086 relative. Faint narrowband, very faint. 20 miles west, the carrier keeps pushing through black water, lit only by the muted glow of the flight deck and dim bridge lights. No one knows yet that the most heavily protected ship in the formation may already have a silent visitor below. Reclassify? The TAO asks. The operator never looks away. Negative. Need another minute. Another console picks up the trace, then another. The towed array begins to build a clearer line. Hull sonar confirms a weak return. The destroyer does not alter course. Not yet. Any obvious move would speak too loudly, too soon. Instead, the captain orders the smallest correction possible, just enough to improve the geometry without revealing that the hunt has started. Steel turns by fractions. On the surface, nothing changes. Below, everything might. Contact's still there, sonar says. Bearing steady, speed low, very low. That changes the mood instantly. Low speed suggests control. Control suggests training. And training at this level points to a Navy that understands exactly how to operate in the dark. The tactical plot begins filling with quiet conclusions. Submerged contact, unknown nationality, unknown class, estimated position, inside the strike group's outer maneuver space. That last detail says more than anyone needs to say aloud. This is no longer just open ocean. This is the protective ring around a U.S. aircraft carrier. The destroyer's captain enters CIC without rushing. He doesn't need to. The crew understands the seriousness of the moment from his expression alone, and from the fact that he is here at all. He studies the display for 3 seconds, then asks the only question that matters. Is it real? The senior sonar chief answers without taking his eyes off the waterfall display. Yes, Captain, I believe it is. In that room, believe carries more weight than certainty. A second destroyer on the eastern flank is quietly told to listen. No wide broadcast, no formation-wide alert, just a secure transfer of bearing data and a short instruction. Verify submerged trace, sector red 2. Across the strike group, trained sailors lean toward glowing screens. Headphones pressed tight, listening to raw sound pulled from cold water. At 5:17, the contact fades. No one relaxes. A false contact disappears because it never existed. A real submarine disappears because it chooses to. Lost narrowband. Hold the bearing line, the captain says. The destroyer keeps moving. The carrier keeps moving. For 12 long seconds, CIC is filled only with filtered ocean noise and the restrained breathing of sailors fighting the urge to break the silence. Then the line returns, sharper than before. A shaft rate count begins. Slow, controlled, intentional. It is the kind of propulsion signature designed to cross entire oceans without being noticed. The acoustic team isolates blade harmonics buried deep in the water column. The numbers don't fit diesel. They don't fit anything small. Whatever is making that sound is big, very big. One analyst finally says what everyone is already thinking. Captain, this may be a strategic platform. No one repeats it. No one has to. Everyone in that compartment understands the meaning immediately. This is not an attack submarine drifting through a patrol lane by chance. This is something far more serious. A vessel built to disappear, remain unseen for long stretches, and if ever ordered, deliver consequences at the highest level. The contact shifts depth slightly, but the movement is enough. With that one adjustment, the geometry tightens around the most dangerous possibility of all. It is not simply crossing past the strike group. It is not observing from a safe distance. It is turning inward, using the carrier's movement and the ocean's layers to settle into the hardest possible position to track. It is getting closer. On the destroyer's bridge, the officer of the deck receives the first coded update and responds with nothing more than a quiet acknowledgement. The ship keeps its outward appearance unchanged, dark, steady, and deliberately unremarkable. But below the surface of that calm, the strike group is already beginning to shift around a danger that most of the formation still cannot see. At 5:21, the second destroyer reports a faint confirmation within the same bearing family. That is the moment it becomes real for everyone. The captain folds his arms and studies the tactical screen. First the carrier icon, then the submerged track just ahead of it. The spacing between them is far too small. "Any chance this is incidental?" the sonar chief answers immediately. "Negative, Captain. Not at this range." No one says Russia yet, not out loud. But when the acoustic library starts generating probability bands, one profile rises above the rest. Massive displacement, exceptionally quiet signature, long endurance performance. Fragments linked to one of Moscow's most advanced undersea platforms. It is not confirmed, not officially, but it is close enough to send a chill through the room. The captain gives his next order in a tone so even it almost sounds routine. "Set quiet, ASW posture. Cue the air wing. Don't push him too early." Then he leans toward the plot. The red symbol inches one fraction closer to the carrier's protective ring. And finally, the truth everyone has been trying not to say settles over the room. It's inside the screen. By 5:21 local time, nobody says the word carrier aloud anymore. They do not need to. Inside the destroyer's combat information center, every screen, every headset, every line of focus is now built around one reality. A submerged contact carrying the acoustic weight of a Russian super submarine is operating inside the outer defensive screen of a U.S. carrier strike group. Too close to dismiss. Too deliberate to call accidental. Too controlled to invite panic. The carrier itself keeps moving as though nothing has changed, and that may be the clearest sign of all that the U.S. Navy understands exactly what kind of situation this is. No sudden turn, no obvious burst of speed, no visible disruption on deck. From a distance, the formation still looks routine. Gray steel moving through cold water in perfect order. Inside the ships, though, the posture is tightening second by second. Watch teams move from observation to full tactical focus. Plots refresh faster. Every bearing shift matters now. The destroyer's captain makes the call without hesitation. Do not broadcast a formation-wide alarm. Localize first. That single decision says everything. No noise, no drama, no premature reaction that might hand the submarine an exit before its position is understood. If the contact came here to send a message, the response will not be emotional. It will be controlled. On the eastern edge of the formation, a second destroyer is told to alter course by only a few degrees, barely enough to notice. Farther south, the cruiser opens its spacing slightly, creating a cleaner passive track line. No one rushes in. No one tries to be dramatic. They are building geometry. The sonar teams know exactly what that means. More angles, better convergence, fewer hiding places. At 5:24, the contact slips again. For 6 seconds, the trace smears into the background as if it was never there at all. Then it returns, deeper, offset, and moving even slower than before. The sonar chief narrows his eyes. He heard something. That changes the atmosphere immediately. Up to this point, one possibility remained that the submarine had simply drifted too near the strike group. Now that explanation is gone. Now the stronger assumption is that it knows the formation is reacting and is already adjusting its own position inside the acoustic shadows beneath the group. This was not random. On the carrier, flight deck crews receive a low-visibility tasking order. An MH-60R Seahawk is readied for launch. Not for direct action, not yet, but for airborne anti-submarine search. Sonobuoys are loaded. Torpedo safeties remain on standby. The helicopter crew is given no dramatic speech, only headings, sectors, and one instruction repeated twice. Find clean water. Build the picture. At 5:27, the helicopter lifts into the morning haze while the carrier below keeps driving straight ahead. 90,000 tons of deliberate calm. That matters. A submarine commander, listening through passive sonar, wants signs of disruption. Sharp turns, engine changes, disorder. Instead, he gets discipline. That matters too. Inside the destroyer's CIC, bearing lines from 3 platforms begin to intersect. The towed array offers one solution. The second destroyer provides another. The airborne crew moves into place to start laying a field of listening points ahead of the contact's most likely route. This is not a chase, it is a tightening box. Then the submarine makes one final adjustment, and with it, removes the last doubt. It shifts toward the carrier, not directly, not quickly, just enough to slide into the loudest, hardest band of water beneath the center of the formation, where the carrier's own machinery and escort traffic can distort passive tracking and make the picture far more difficult to hold. It is a professional move, the kind made by a crew that understands exactly how to use the formation itself as cover. The tactical action officer stares at the plot a moment longer than usual. He's using the carrier as clutter. No one replies because he is right. This is the part most people never witness. Undersea warfare is not simply about power. It is about who detects first, who interprets faster, and who forces the other side into doubt. Right now, the submarine is doing exactly that. It is not fleeing. It is positioning itself where tracking becomes tactically difficult and strategically sensitive. At 5:31, the first sonobuoy hits the water, then a second, then a third. They fall in a staggered pattern well ahead of the contact's projected path. Each splash places another listening point into the ocean. Each buoy reduces the unknown. Above them, the MH-60R circles low, sending raw acoustic data back into the strike group's network in real time. For a brief moment, the picture sharpens beautifully. The submarine is large, deep, slow, still inside the screen. Then it turns. The course change is subtle, but perfectly timed, just enough to slip between two developing sensor lines and force the Americans to rebuild the solution from the beginning. Inside CIC, the room goes nearly silent except for bearings, speeds, and short acknowledgements. No one needs to say it aloud. The commander on the other side is highly skilled. The destroyer's captain watches the movement carefully, then gives the order that marks the transition from concern to containment. Box him in! A second MH-60R is placed on alert. The eastern destroyer is directed to cover a probable escape corridor. The cruiser to the south adjusts its station again, closing off open water along the submarine's most likely route out. Still no weapons release, still no active sonar pulse. Not yet. But the pattern is clear now. The U.S. Navy is no longer trying to figure out what this submarine intends to do. That question has already been answered. This approach was deliberate, it was measured, and now the strike group is moving to make sure the next decision is no longer the submarines alone. By 5:33 local time, the pursuit stops being cautious and becomes exact. Across the strike group, ships that seemed calm and unchanged only minutes earlier begin making tiny course corrections that mean almost nothing on the surface and everything below it. A degree to port here, half a degree starboard there. To the eye, the formation still looks like a routine transit through gray water. Underneath, the geometry is closing like a fist. The submarine remains inside the screen, and now the Navy is shaping a trap around it. Inside the Eastern Destroyer's CIC, the updated tactical plot flashes across multiple consoles. The contact's likely route is no longer an open corridor stretching into deep ocean. It is now a narrowing strip of water bounded by 3 separate sensor lines. The lead destroyer's towed array to the west, the cruiser's listening sector to the south, and the airborne sonobuoy field settling into place ahead. The captain of the screening destroyer gives the order without drama. Keep the carrier steady. Move the walls. That is the key. The carrier does not react. She stays on course, massive, calm, and for the moment, the center of the entire problem. The submarine came close enough to matter. The escorts do the maneuvering for her. That is how experienced crews protect a flat top. You do not let the carrier show unease. You let the screen reshape the water around the threat. At 5:35, the MH-60R drops 2 more sonobuoys in a loose diagonal pattern, extending the acoustic fence across the submarine's northern escape route. The splashes are small, almost gentle. Their effect is anything but. Each buoy adds another angle of listening, another chance to catch the submarine between layers of sound, another opportunity to detect a turn, a propulsion change, or a shift in depth that can no longer stay hidden. On the lead destroyer, the acoustic operator leans closer to his display. Contact drifting north, slightly, speed unchanged. The TAO studies the plot. He already understands what the submarine is trying to do. It is searching for seam water, the thin, imperfect gaps between sensors where an undersea platform can disappear if the timing is right. A boat this advanced knows how American screens are built. It knows passive arrays do not seal the ocean shut. It knows every defensive ring has joints. So it starts looking for one. At 5:37, the contact fades again. This time, longer. 10 seconds. 15. 20. No one mistakes the silence for safety. A less disciplined submarine might have accelerated. A nervous one might have gone deep and made noise. This one does neither. It simply reduces its acoustic presence until it nearly merges with the ocean itself. The sonar chief exhales slowly. He is trying to settle beneath the layer. It is a smart decision. The thermal layer under the strike group is already warping returns, bending sound, and shielding the submarine in broken fragments. If the boat can remain there long enough, it can let the formation pass and then slip out behind it. But the U.S. Navy sees the move developing. The second destroyer shifts course by another fraction. The cruiser to the south widens farther, sealing off what had looked like the cleanest southern exit. In the MH-60R, the tactical coordinator recalculates the buoy pattern and pushes the pilot farther east. Then comes the first clear sign that the Americans are no longer treating this as simple observation. "Captain," the sonar supervisor says, "recommend one active pulse, short duration." The room goes still. Active sonar changes the tone immediately. Passive listening is quiet and patient. It lets the other side wonder. An active pulse says something far more direct. "We are searching this water deliberately, and we are no longer hiding that fact." The captain thinks for less than a second. Single pulse, controlled. At 5:39, the destroyer sends it. The sound cuts through the water like a hammer strike. Brief, clinical. Not a barrage, not panic, just one cold burst of certainty. And it works. The submarine reacts at once. On the tactical screen, the contact does not vanish. It jumps, a depth shift, a turn, a slight increase in speed. Small changes by surface standards, but in submarine warfare, they are enormous. The pulse did not frighten it. It forced a choice. And by choosing, the submarine revealed itself. "There," sonar says sharply. "Contact maneuvering, new bearing, confirmed, confirmed." That is the moment the trap stops being a theory. The submarine has shown its hand. Inside CIC, updates move from console to console in rapid succession. The contact is no longer holding beneath the layer. It is climbing slightly and angling east-northeast, straight toward the one remaining gap in the temporary box. That gap lies between the Eastern Destroyer's passive arc and the newest buoy line, which has not fully settled into the water yet. The boat found the seam. For a second, it almost looks brilliant. The Russian commander is doing exactly what a top-tier submarine captain should do. Identify the unfinished edge of the screen, move before the Americans can tighten it, and break into open water before active tracking becomes sustained. But the strike group has been expecting that move since 5:31. The Eastern Destroyer receives the update and begins turning before the order is fully repeated. Steel responds faster than speech. Her bow swings just enough to cut across the submarine's projected escape route. Above, the MH-60R banks hard and races toward the same corridor, ready to drop two more buoys directly into the opening. The pilot never asks why. He can already see the geometry closing on his display. At 5:41, both sonobuoys hit the water within seconds of each other. The acoustic fence is no longer a pattern. It is a wall. The submarine keeps moving, faster now. Not sprinting, but no longer pretending indifference. Its own caution has exposed it. Every added knot creates more noise. Every course change leaves another clue. Every attempt to thread the seam sharpens the American solution. The TAO watches the red symbol creep between blue icons and finally says what everyone in the room now understands. He's out of room. No one celebrates, no one eases off. A cornered submarine is often at its most dangerous just before it realizes there is nowhere left to go. At 5:42, the contact checks south and finds the cruiser. It checks west and finds the original destroyer. It checks north and finds the sonobuoy field. Ahead, there is only tightening water and the silent weight of a carrier strike group that has stopped reacting and started dictating the pace. On the screen, three separate sensor tracks merge into one firm, undeniable solution. The captain studies it once, then folds his arms. He's out of ocean. At 5:42 local time, the Russian submarine is still intact, still capable, still a serious threat, but it is no longer free to move as it chooses. That is the difference. Inside the lead destroyer's combat information center, the tactical picture has gone from uncertain to brutally clear. Three independent sensor chains now agree on the same contact. The submarine's choices are no longer measured in oceans or patrol areas. They are measured in minutes and angles. South is closed by the cruiser's listening arc. West is covered by the original destroyer's towed array. North is sealed by the sonobuoy field, drifting into a dense acoustic curtain. East, the one route that almost opened, is collapsing under helicopter coverage and a destroyer already moving to shut the door. No shots have been fired. And that is exactly what makes it so cold and effective. The U.S. Navy is not trying to destroy the submarine. It is trying to control it. The carrier remains on course, cutting through gray water with the same massive calm she showed at the beginning of the encounter. No emergency turns, no visible disruption, no outward sign to the world that one of Russia's most advanced undersea platforms has just failed to unsettle the center of a U.S. strike group. That calm is not for appearance. It is pressure applied with precision. The message is impossible to miss. You got close, and you changed nothing. At 5:44, the first deliberate active sonar sequence begins. Not frantic, not continuous. Just controlled pulses from the screening destroyer, spaced carefully enough to avoid sounding alarmed and clean enough to send the opposite message. Each ping cuts through the water and returns with more information than the submarine wants to reveal. changes in depth, turn rate, speed, propulsor behavior, response timing. Every reaction is recorded, every pause is recorded, every attempt to slip deeper or angle away is recorded. This is no longer simple tracking, this is exploitation. Above, inside the MH-60, the acoustic operator watches fresh buoy data stream in and begins assembling a tighter behavioral picture. The submarine favors short speed bursts after active exposure. It leans towards slight starboard turns before changing depth. It is trying to use the carrier's old wake turbulence as broken acoustic cover, but the formation has already moved beyond that water. That trick is gone. Now all that remains is the boat itself, and the boat is beginning to reveal its habits. That matters more than headlines, more than public statements, more than whatever version of events Moscow may describe later. In undersea warfare, silence is a submarine's shield, but its reactions are its fingerprints. Right now, the U.S. Navy is collecting those fingerprints second by second. At 5:46, the Eastern Destroyer reports a cleaner flank solution. The tactical action officer turns to the captain. "We can pressure the egress line." The captain gives a small nod. "Do it again." The strike group still does not overreact. No sprint, no sudden hard turn meant to flush the contact. The Eastern Destroyer simply adjusts enough to sit across the submarine's most likely escape bearing, while the helicopter shifts above and slightly ahead. The cruiser maintains its southern block. The lead destroyer continues its measured sonar pulses. The effect on the commander below is surgical. Every route now sends the same message. Move here, and you will be heard. Move there, and you will be mapped. Wait too long, and the box tightens further. At 5:47, the submarine makes one final professional move. It adds speed in a short burst and angles northeast, trying to break through before the helicopter can refresh the buoy line. It is exactly the right decision. If uncertainty still exists in the American screen, the problem is that it doesn't. The burst lights up the water, not visually, but acoustically. Narrowband lines sharpen. Shaft harmonics become cleaner. Flow noise rises. The contact that spent the last half hour trying to remain little more than a rumor suddenly becomes the clearest thing in the ocean. "There it is," sonar says, almost under his breath. "Full profile." Those words hit harder than any dramatic alarm, because now the submarine is not just contained, it is exposed. The helicopter banks and drops another pair of sonobuoys directly ahead of the attempted breakout path. The Eastern Destroyer refines its position again. On the lead destroyer, analysts begin marking the exact time relationship between each active pulse and each maneuver the submarine makes. Elsewhere in the strike group, intelligence personnel are almost certainly building the first draft of something invaluable. A record of how one of Russia's quietest and most dangerous submarines behaves when it realizes it has been cornered near an American carrier. That record will matter long after this morning ends. At 5:49, the submarine abandons the approach. It does not surface. It does not transmit. It does nothing dramatic enough for cameras or headlines. It simply turns away from the carrier's protective ring and begins opening the distance. Deeper now. Faster now. No longer searching for advantage, only searching for room. The carrier keeps moving. That may be the coldest part of all. A Russian super submarine came dangerously close to the most valuable ship in the formation, and the formation did not fracture. It did not scatter. It did not panic. Instead, it closed around the intruder, forced it to maneuver, studied its reactions, and pushed it back out without a single shot. The captain watches the red symbol drift outward across the tactical screen. "Keep logging," he says. No celebration follows. Professionals do not cheer when something dangerous leaves their reach. They document it, they study it, they make sure that the next time it returns, it is facing a fleet that already knows more than it did before. At 5:51, the submarine is beyond the tightest part of the screen. Still present, still Russian, still real, but no longer controlling the encounter. Now we own his signature. At 5:51 local time, the most dangerous phase is over. Not because the Russian submarine has vanished, but because it is pulling away. On tactical screens across the strike group, the red submerged contact is no longer pressing inward, no longer searching for weak points inside the carrier's defensive ring, and no longer using the formation's own noise as cover. It is moving outward now, deeper, faster, and toward colder, emptier water. In raw numbers, the change looks small. In undersea warfare, it changes everything. The Russian commander is no longer testing the formation, he is disengaging. Inside the lead destroyer's combat information center, no one treats that like a moment for relief. They treat it for what it is, the final phase of managing contact. A submarine that has decided to withdraw is still a submarine. It can still turn back, it can still slow down, it can still disappear if the screen relaxes too early. So the U.S. Navy does what it has done from the first faint trace to this final outward movement. It stays disciplined. Maintain track, the captain says. No one echoes the order. No one needs to. The acoustic teams remain locked into their headsets. The MH-60R overhead stays on station long enough to hold the outer edge of the picture. The Eastern destroyer keeps its angle. The cruiser to the south does not chase. And the carrier continues forward with the same measured steadiness she has carried all morning, as if the entire encounter beneath her keel never rose high enough to disturb her course. That image says more than any transmission ever could. A Russian super submarine got dangerously close to a U.S. aircraft carrier, and the carrier never had to flinch. At 5:54, the contact's acoustic character changes again. The earlier cautious maneuvering is gone. So is the near-silent drift it used while inside the screen. Now the boat is using more speed and accepting more noise, trading stealth for distance. To an outsider, that might sound like escalation. Inside CIC, it sounds like retreat. The sonar chief marks the change with a grease pencil on the edge of his console pad, then begins comparing the latest returns with what they captured 30 minutes earlier. That is where the real damage is being done now, not with weapons, not with explosions, with data. The shaft harmonics are cleaner than they were at first contact. The flow noise from the attempted breakout is clearer too. The brief speed burst at 5:47 gave them a sharper read on propulsor behavior. The response to active sonar is time-stamped. The preferred escape angle is recorded. The depth changes made beneath the carrier's acoustic clutter are preserved line by line. In anti-submarine warfare, that is priceless. A submarine survives by remaining unknown. This one came in close enough to make a point, and in doing so, it gave up the one thing it could least afford to lose, its patterns. At 5:56, the MH-60R crew reports weakening buoy correlation on the northern edge. The contact is stretching the distance now, moving beyond the tightest part of the trap the strike group built around it. The helicopter is told not to pursue recklessly, just extend the picture, confirm the trend, and send every last useful fragment back to the ships. Again, the response is the same as it has been from the beginning. Calm. Control. The Eastern Destroyer's tactical action officer watches the moving symbol and asks the obvious question. Do we hold outer posture? The answer comes back immediately. Affirm. No overextension. That matters too. The U.S. Navy is not going to turn a controlled undersea victory into a messy chase. The point has already been made. The submarine came close enough to threaten, but not close enough to dictate terms. It entered the screen, found the carrier steady, found the escorts sharper than expected, and left making more noise than it made on arrival. For the Russians, that is a poor trade. For the Americans, it is nearly ideal. By 5:59, the strike group begins easing back toward normal screening geometry. Not suddenly, not dramatically. The cruiser reduces its southern block. The Eastern Destroyer steadies its course. The helicopter turns back toward the carrier after its final buoy pass. On the surface, the ocean returns to its old appearance, gray, empty, ordinary. Only the men inside CIC know how false that appearance really is. They know that beneath that quiet surface, one of the most closely protected forms of military knowledge has just grown by several more pages. They will study every part of it, how the submarine closed in, how it concealed itself, how it responded under pressure, and how it chose to withdraw. And the next time a similar contact appears anywhere within the fleet's reach, that memory will already be there, waiting. That is the part most people never see. A submarine can survive a close encounter. What it cannot easily survive is being understood. By 6:03, the red symbol on the plot is no longer an immediate danger. It is now an outbound contact. Increasing range, still monitored, still important, but no longer driving the encounter. The center of the story has shifted. The carrier remains at the heart of the formation. The strike group remains intact, and the Russian boat is the one moving away. The captain looks once more at the plot, then at the acoustic package, still filling in on a nearby screen. No one in the room celebrates. There are no fist bumps, no relieved laughter, only the quiet hum of consoles and the restrained focus of professionals who understand exactly what they stopped and exactly what they gained. The submarine came close enough to send a message. The U.S. Navy made sure it left with one of its own. And in the cold Atlantic morning, the carrier simply keeps moving forward.